I mean, I can't remember a time when I wasn't drawing, so I guess it wouldn't have surprised me that I was still doing art at that point. I think I would be happy about that, you know. I think, oh, like, that actually sort of worked out. That's great. So.
And what would you offer? What question would you ask? Or what would you say to encourage young women, especially, to pursue an art career?
I think mainly just to make sure that you're doing what you're interested in, and to not really care how that looks. I know for a long time I was really self-conscious about doing self-portraits all the time. I was like, oh, I look really self-centered, and I, you know, like, what do people think about me that I'm always doing myself? You know, do they think I just think I'm really pretty and I want to, you know, draw myself all the time and things like that. But after a while, you just figure out, like, it doesn't really matter what they think. If it's making me keep producing art, then that's a good thing, you know? So I think that's the roadblocks that people set up for themselves are what make them not successful. So if I had said, like, well, I can't do self-portraits anymore, then I probably wouldn't have made as much art as I've made, because I had to constantly be searching for something to do instead, when this is what just came naturally, you know. So I would just give the advice that whatever you're interested in, even if it seems weird, even if people are telling you you need to branch out, I don't know, like, just stick to what actually interests you.
And I brought up women was within this, well, the 20th century, women had just started getting recognized as artists. Prior to that, there were wonderful artists. You see them on Antiques Roadshow, but they're obscure. No one has, very few people have heard of them. So to me, the opportunity is right for the development of art, but also you're a writer. And how does, besides doing the cartoons, when you talk to people, are you painting a picture in here? Are you sketching me right now?
I mean, no, not when I talk to people, but I definitely, the comics for sure, like, once I started drawing the comics, and for a while I was doing it every day, then every day something does present itself to you that, you know, like, oh, I should keep this for a comic, like, oh, let me write this on a Post-it note because I don't want to forget. So, like, once you're in that mode, then your mind is constantly recognizing things that can be made into comics. But if you're not in that mode, you know, like, when I started dating my new boyfriend, I stopped drawing comics for a while because I was always drawing comics like about things I was depressed about or like things that I was frustrated about. And then all of a sudden I didn't have those anymore and I didn't know what to write about anymore. So I stopped for a little while and it seemed like there was no good ideas, like there was nothing to make comics about. And once I stopped, then I stopped thinking about being in that mode, you know? So it took more, it was a shift, and eventually, you know, my boyfriend is in plenty of these comics, so eventually I got back to doing them. But it's one of those things that the more you practice it, the more you do it, definitely the easier it is, you know? Like if I was encouraging someone to write comics about their life, they would probably say, oh, I have nothing to write about, nothing happens to me, you know? But you just have to start with something, and as soon as you start, then your mind is structured in a way that it's going to be easy for you to find something every day that you could write a comic about.
In October, Krystal says she's going to do a Zoom class on, is it comic development?
Especially even if they think they don't have artistic talent, like comics and cartoons can be really simple, and all you need to be able to convey is, you know, certain emotions and things. So a lot of times, you know, they need to have eyebrows. But that's, you know, you can get so much expression from eyebrows. So you can do really simple pictures really effectively in comics. So that's another thing that I've sort of transitioned through. Like a lot of the comics I have framed up here took a little bit more time. Like took more artistic talent, I guess, than the ones I do now, because I figured out that like I don't have time, you know, to make them really pretty all the time. Like if I'm gonna do that, then I end up not doing them at all because I don't have time. So now they're a lot simpler. Maybe they don't look quite as pretty, but I produce more of them. So you kind of find out what's important, you know, like how can I make this sustainable, and that's making them simpler. So the class that I would teach is just kind of teaching people how to make their own avatars almost, you know, how to see themselves as a series of simple lines.
People have called me a living comic. Especially my grandkids. But, you know, the other thing that I noticed is you have a distinctive style. So in other words, if I saw your work in a comic strip, in a newspaper, I would automatically recognize it as your work. Was that a process of development, or
It's kind of one of those things that another thing that you just have to go with what is easiest, and you know what comes to you easiest, and stick with it. Because if you're trying too hard to really make a style copy something or fit with something, then it's too hard, it's too much work, you know, like you have to constantly be referencing things to do your work. So at some point you have to find what you have in your head, and you don't have to reference, you don't have to look at other things, you know. So it's not something that I super consciously like made a decision about, but it was you try to have consistency too, I guess. And I think a lot of it comes with what your influences are, you know, like growing up, I loved like 90s superhero cartoons. So that's where I think I started kind of trying to make my pictures look like was that. And then they got a little bit simpler than that, like I said, because you figure out that you have to, if you want to do comics on a daily basis or a frequent basis, you have to be able to do them quick. So they got simpler than the 90s cartoon style. But that's where they started from, I think. That is, you know, I guess in the beginning, maybe it wasn't so much for me. I don't know. That's the thing that you have to let yourself be okay with all of your pictures not looking great. You know, you have to let yourself say, like, simple is fine, you know? It doesn't have to be complicated. And that's one of the things that is very appealing about comics. If I was a comic artist full time, then I would probably do all of them in more elaborate styles, but as it is, it's, you know, I gotta get a 3 to 5 panel comic out and try to keep it under an hour because that's all I've got time for, you know.
Oh, wow. You work fast.
That's what practice does. The more you do it, the easier it is.
So, during the artistry session, do you welcome children to come and visit with you and meet you, and can they bring an autograph book and have you do a little comic in their autograph book?
Possibly. I mean, I can draw a little picture of myself. I don't have any ideas of, you know, making it funny or whatever, but I can draw a picture and I can sign it.
Well, that'd be wonderful. You know, I'm amazed, and I continually am amazed at the amount and the diversity of talent that's in Southwest Minnesota. And so I say that because I send a postcard to the Walker for every show.
That's a good idea.
I want Minneapolis and St. Paul to come out and take a breather, do a little road trip. We're 2 hours away, or an hour and a half away, really, from Eden Prairie. But the diversity of, and the discipline, that's the other thing, is an artist has discipline. And I'm amazed at how disciplined the artists are from this region, but also how humble they are. I think whether it's your drawing, your selfie drawing, or meeting you in person, or even visiting with you on the phone, you are an extraordinary human being, and we're fortunate. We're so fortunate to have you here at the gallery, but you're just so, you remind me of my granddaughter. So I just want to hug you, but I know I can't because of COVID. But thank you again. I just, I really, really, really appreciate it, and what I will be doing is contacting the high school art class. They really need to come in and see your work.
It's a nice show for people to see, I think, that don't think they like art or don't think they know anything about art, because if you can read, you can come and read the pictures, even if you don't have an eye for artistic talent or anything like that. Like, you can still kind of come and get something out of it because you can read the stories instead of just look at abstract art sometimes might only speak to a certain type of people and things like that. But here, I had a lot of people that weren't interested in art, but they thought it was fun coming to the shows because they could read the little stories and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different of a gallery experience.